The Vraxian fleet moved through space like a swarm of locusts. 3,000 ships, each one broadcasting victory messages and playing celebratory music. Supreme Commander Thalrex sat on his command throne aboard the massive flagship Eternal Dominion, watching the screens with satisfaction. "How long until we reach Earth?" he asked his tactical officer. 3 days, Commander. The humans have gone completely silent. No broadcasts, no transmissions. Their homeworld sits dark and quiet. Thalrex's forearms spread wide in a gesture of triumph. They know they are defeated. They wait for death like frightened animals. This is as it should be. Humans were always meant to be prey, not predators. Around the flagship, the Allied fleet celebrated. Ships from 7 different species flew in formation, showing off their power. They fired their weapons into empty space just for the spectacle. They broadcast footage of destroyed human colonies across all frequencies, making sure any survivors knew what was coming. In the command center of one Vraxian cruiser, a young officer named Charnel watched the celebrations with unease. She had been against this war from the beginning. Genocide was not honorable, no matter how the commander tried to justify it. But speaking against Thalrex meant death, so she kept her thoughts to herself and watched the sensors. "Do you find it strange?" she asked her fellow officer quietly. "The silence from Earth?" The other officer laughed. "They are terrified. What else would they do? Their fleet is destroyed, their colonies are ash. They know we could turn their homeworld into glass with a single bombardment." Charnel looked at the sensor displays again. "Perhaps, but humans are clever. They would not simply wait to die without some plan. I have studied their history. They are dangerous when cornered." Her colleague dismissed her concerns with a wave. "You worry too much. Come join the celebration. The war is over. We have won." But Earth was not silent because of fear. Deep inside the protected bunker beneath Geneva, President Kim Jae-hyuk sat with his war council, watching the alien fleets approach on tactical displays. Every ship was tracked. Every movement recorded. "They're strutting like peacock," said Fleet Commander Yoon Tae-sung. "Thalrex is putting on a show. He wants us to see him coming." "Let him have his parade," President Kim replied. "How are our forces positioned?" Intelligence Officer Han Suji pulled up a detailed map of the outer solar system. "All dreadnoughts are in position beyond Pluto's orbit. The Vraxians can't detect them at this range, not with their power systems on minimal. Our cruiser groups are hidden in the Kuiper belt. The destroyer wings are using the asteroid field for cover. When they reach Neptune, we'll have them surrounded and they won't even know it." Ambassador Choi Yuna looked at the president with concern. "Sir, we still have 3,000 human prisoners on their ships. If we attack, Thalrex might execute them." The room fell silent. President Kim closed his eyes for a moment. This was the burden of command. Every choice meant someone lived or died. If we do nothing, all of humanity dies. Those prisoners knew the risks when they joined the colonial service. We honor them by ensuring their sacrifice means something. We honor them by winning. Dr. Park Ji-woo entered the command center, still wearing his lab coat. He had just arrived from the Pluto research station. "Mr. President, the dreadnoughts are fully operational. All weapon systems are testing at 100%. The new slip space drives are ready. We can jump in and out of normal space at will, something the Vraxians have never seen before." "Casualties?" asked President Kim. "Be honest with me, Doctor. How many of our people will die in the coming battle?" Park Ji-woo hesitated. "If everything goes according to plan, minimal. Our ships are bigger, faster, and better armed. We have surprise on our side. But if something goes wrong, if they adapt faster than we expect, we could lose thousands. War is never predictable." President Kim nodded slowly. "Better thousands than billions. Better to fight with a chance than to surrender and guarantee extinction." Far out in the darkness beyond Pluto, the Terran Dreadnought Inchin's vengeance waited in the cold and black. Admiral Kwon Dae-ho walked through the massive ship's corridors, inspecting the final preparations. The vessel was huge, stretching 3 kilometers from bow to stern. It carried weapons that could crack a planet and engines that could outrun anything in the known galaxy. Captain Lee Hyon met him in the main hangar bay. Lee had survived the destruction of Seoul's Pride and had been given command of another dreadnought, the Busan's Fury. He had come aboard the flagship for a final briefing before battle. "Admiral," Lee said formally, though his eyes showed the strain of the last few weeks. "My ship is ready. My crew is ready. But I have to ask, is this really what we want to do? Once we start this, there's no going back. We're not defending anymore. We're going on the attack. Quan looked at the younger captain with understanding. You're wondering if we're becoming like them? If revenge will turn us into monsters? Yes, sir. Quan gestured for Lee to follow him. They walked to an observation deck that looked out into deep space. In the distance, barely visible, other dreadnoughts hung in the void like sleeping giants. 20 years ago, Quan said, when Earth realized we were alone in a hostile galaxy, we made a choice. We could try to appease the older races, bow and scrape and hope they left us alone, or we could prepare to defend ourselves. We chose preparation. He pointed at the distant ships. Every one of those vessels represents sacrifice. Every family on Earth paid higher taxes to build them. Every scientist worked extra hours. Every engineer pushed the limits of what was possible. We built these ships not because we wanted to conquer, but because we wanted to survive. And now they've forced our hand. Lee Hyon stared out at the fleet. And after? If we win, then we make sure this never happens again. We make the galaxy understand that humanity will not be bullied or exterminated. We become strong enough that others think twice before attacking us. Quan turned to face the captain directly, but we don't become them. We show restraint. We show mercy when possible. We remember that we're fighting for survival, not genocide. Back on the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Thalrex received an unexpected message. One of his scout ships had detected unusual heat signatures near Pluto. Nothing concrete. Just brief thermal blooms that appeared and disappeared. Probably just human escape pods, suggested his tactical officer. Survivors from the colony battles trying to hide. Thalrex wasn't so sure. Send a cruiser to investigate. I want to know what's out there. Sir, that will delay the attack on Earth by several hours. I don't care. Send the cruiser. Something feels wrong. The Vraxian cruiser broke away from the main fleet and accelerated toward the outer system. Its sensors swept the darkness, searching for anything unusual. The crew was bored, expecting to find nothing but ice and rocks. They found something else instead. The dreadnought Dejon's Wrath powered up its systems. The cruiser's sensors finally detected it, but by then it was too late. The massive human warship appeared on their screens like a mountain suddenly materializing in front of them. All stop. All stop! Screamed the Vraxian captain. Back to the fleet, emergency speed. The dreadnought fired once, a single railgun round, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. It punched through the cruiser's shields like they were made of paper. The alien ship simply came apart, torn into pieces by the kinetic energy. The destruction was broadcast back to the main fleet. Every alien commander saw it. The celebration stopped. Music cut off mid-song. The party was over. Supreme Commander Thalrex stared at the image of the destroyed cruiser. What was that? What destroyed my ship? His sensor officer's hands shook as he worked his console. Commander, I'm detecting power signatures throughout the outer system. Massive signatures. I count 30. No, 40. Sir, there are over 50 enormous contacts out there. Each one is 3 times the size of our largest battleship. Thalrex felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. That's impossible. The humans don't have ships that large. Our intelligence said they had nothing bigger than a heavy cruiser. Our intelligence was wrong, Commander. From Earth, President Kim watched the alien fleet's formation start to break apart as panic spread through their ranks. He looked at Fleet Commander Yoon. Send the signal. It's time. Yoon Tae-sung opened the fleet-wide channel. His voice went out to every human ship waiting in the darkness. This is Earth Defense Command to all Terran forces. Protocol Reaper is now active. All vessels are weapons-free. Show them what humanity built in the dark. For Earth, for the colonies, for everyone we lost. Make them remember this day forever. Across the outer solar system, 52 dreadnoughts powered up to full combat status. Their fusion reactors roared to life. Their weapons charged. Their new slip-space drives created ripples in space itself. Admiral Quan stood on the bridge of Incheon's vengeance and gave the order that would change galactic history. All ships, attack formation. Jump on my mark. Let's show these aliens what happens when you try to exterminate humanity. The void began to tear open, not from normal FTL jumps, but from something new, something the Vraxians had never seen. Humanity's slip-space technology bypassed conventional hyperspace entirely. And through those tears in space, the Terran Dreadnoughts began to emerge. Admiral Quan Deho stood on the command deck of Meridian 7, watching the stars through the massive viewport. He had been stationed at this defense platform for 3 years, protecting the colonies in the Tau Ceti system. It was supposed to be a quiet assignment. Nothing ever happened out here in the frontier. That changed when the sensors began screaming. "Admiral, we have multiple contacts jumping in," shouted Lieutenant Han Suji from her station. "Counting 50. No, 100. Sir, there are over 300 ships entering the system." Quan felt his blood turn cold. 300 ships was more than the entire human colonial fleet combined. He grabbed the comm and opened a channel to all stations. "This is Admiral Quan, battle stations. All civilians are to evacuate immediately. This is not a drill." The alien ships were massive, painted in dark purple and crimson. They belonged to the Vraxian Dominion, a powerful empire that had always viewed humanity with contempt. Humanity had only been traveling between stars for 40 years. The Vraxians had been doing it for thousands. "Incoming transmission," said Han Suji. A holographic image appeared above the command table. It showed a tall alien creature with 4 arms and golden eyes that glowed with hatred. This was Supreme Commander Thalrex, leader of the Vraxian Warfleet. "Humans," the alien said, his voice like grinding metal. "Your species has spread across the galaxy like a disease. Today we cure this infection. Surrender your colonies and we will make your deaths quick. Resist and we will make you suffer." Admiral Quan stood tall even though fear clawed at his chest. "This is Admiral Quan of the United Earth Defense Force. These colonies are under our protection. Leave now or face the consequences." Thalrex laughed. It was a terrible sound. "Your protection? You have 12 defense stations and maybe 200 ships across all your colonies. We have brought 3,000 warships. We have 7 species in our coalition. You are children playing with toys. Watch now as we show you the power of a real civilization." The transmission cut off. A moment later, the Vraxian fleet opened fire. The plasma lances struck like lightning from the heavens. The first volley destroyed half of Meridian 7's defensive batteries. Alarms screamed throughout the station as hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. Quan held onto his command chair as the deck shook beneath his feet. "Return fire," he ordered. "All railguns target their lead ships." Humanity's weapons were primitive compared to alien technology. Railguns fired chunks of metal at high speed. They had worked well enough against pirates and smugglers. Against the Vraxian shields, they might as well have been throwing rocks. The battle was a massacre. Captain Lee, Hyon, commanded the destroyer Soul's Pride. He watched from his ship as the alien fleet tore through the human defenses like a knife through paper. Station after station went dark. Ship after ship exploded into clouds of debris. "Captain, we need to retreat," shouted his tactical officer. "We can't win this fight." Lee Hyon knew the officer was right, but retreat meant abandoning millions of colonists on the planets below. He thought of his sister, who lived on Tau Ceti Prime with her 2 children. He thought of all the families who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. "All ships target the enemy carriers," he ordered. "If we're going down, we take as many of them with us as possible." The Soul's Pride and 6 other destroyers formed up and charged at the alien formation. Their missiles streaked through space, and a few actually made it through the point defenses. 2 Vraxian cruisers took damage. It was a small victory, but it cost them everything. The return fire was devastating. Lee Hyon felt his ship shake as plasma lances burned through the armor. Systems failed all around him. Fire spread through the corridors. "All hands, abandon ship," he ordered. "Get to the escape pods now." As his crew fled, Lee Hyon made one final transmission. "This is Captain Lee Hyon to all human forces. The Tau Ceti system has fallen. Warn Earth. Tell them the Vraxians are coming for the homeworld. Tell them." The transmission cut off as the Soul's Pride broke apart. Lee Hyon managed to reach an escape pod at the last second. He launched into the darkness of space, watching through the small window as his ship died. Around him, human colonies burned. Across 12 star systems, the story repeated itself. The Vraxian Dominion had planned this attack for years. They struck everywhere at once, overwhelming humanity's scattered defenses. The aliens had speed, they had numbers, and they had technology that was centuries ahead of Earth's. On the frozen research station orbiting Pluto, Dr. Park Ji-woo watched the reports coming in from the colonies. Each message was worse than the last. Tau Ceti destroyed. New Shanghai fallen. The Kepler stations gone silent. How many dead? asked one of his assistants, a young scientist named Nam Jiho. Park Jiwoo looked at the numbers scrolling across his screen. Billions. Maybe 3 billion colonists are dead or captured. The outer defense fleet is gone. Everything beyond Mars has fallen. Nam Jiho sat down heavily, his face pale with shock. Then it's over. They'll come for Earth next. How can we stop them? Park Ji-woo turned away from the screens and looked out the window. Beyond Pluto's orbit, the darkness of the outer solar system stretched forever. But it wasn't empty. Out there in the black, huge shapes moved through the void. Ships larger than any human had ever built before. Except these ships weren't alien. They were human. They had been built in secret, hidden from the galaxy for 20 years. We stopped them, Park Ji-woo said quietly. By showing them what humans do when you try to exterminate us. We adapt, we build, we prepare. On Earth, Ambassador Choi Yuna sat in an emergency meeting with President Kim Jae-hyuk. The president looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 3 days. Around the table sat military commanders, scientists, and politicians. Everyone was talking at once, shouting suggestions and arguments. "We need to surrender," said one general. "If we fight, they'll kill everyone on Earth." "We can't surrender," another commander argued. "The Vraxians don't take prisoners. They're exterminating us." President Kim raised his hand for silence. The room went quiet. "Ambassador Choi, what did the Galactic Council say when you asked for help?" Choi Yuna's voice was bitter. "They said humanity brought this on ourselves. They said we expanded too fast, claimed too many systems. The Council won't intervene. We're alone." The room erupted in angry shouts again. President Kim let them vent for a moment, then stood up. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Then we proceed with Operation Iron Curtain. Admiral Yoon, send the order. Total communications blackout. No transmissions in or out of Sol system. Make it look like Earth is dead or preparing to surrender." Fleet Commander Yoon Tae-sung nodded grimly. "Yes, sir. What about the Vraxian fleet?" "They're gathering at Neptune, celebrating their victory. They'll move on Earth within weeks." President Kim looked around the room at the desperate faces. "Let them celebrate. Let them think they've won. They have no idea what we built while they weren't looking. For 20 years, we've poured everything into preparing for this day. Every resource, every credit, every scientist and engineer. We knew someone would try to wipe us out eventually." He pulled up a holographic display. It showed the secret shipyards hidden in the Kuiper Belt. Massive construction facilities that had been building in the darkness for 2 decades. And in those yards sat ships. Huge ships. Warships that made the Vraxian battleships look small. "The Dreadnoughts are ready," President Kim said. "All 52 of them. Plus 400 cruisers and 2,000 support ships. When the Vraxians come, we'll be waiting." In space near Neptune, the Vraxian Dominion's Grand Armada gathered. 3,000 ships from 7 different species, all united in their hatred of humanity. They believed they had won. Their propaganda broadcasts declared humanity finished. Supreme Commander Thalrex gave speeches about the glorious victory. The aliens didn't know that in the darkness beyond Pluto, weapon systems were powering up. 52 massive warships prepared to emerge from hiding. Humanity had spent 20 years building these monsters in secret. Now it was time to show the galaxy what happened when you tried to exterminate. The human race Admiral Kwon Dae-ho had survived the destruction of Meridian 7. He had been rescued from his escape pod and brought back to Earth. Now he stood in the Fleet Command Center, looking at screens showing the Vraxian celebration. His hands clenched into fists. "How long?" he asked. A technician checked his console. "The Dreadnoughts will be in position in 6 hours, sir. On your order, we can begin." Kwon thought of all the people who had died. The colonies that burned. The families torn apart. He thought of the 20 years humanity had spent preparing for this moment, sacrificing everything to build a fleet that could fight back. "Send the signal," he said. "Tell all Terran forces Protocol Reaper is active. Weapons free. Show them what we built in the dark." "Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the fleet. Total casualties, 47p. The news of the Battle of Neptune spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Vraxian Dominion, which had ruled through fear and military might for centuries, had been crushed by a species they had considered primitive. The surviving alien ships scattered to 3 different star systems, trying to regroup and call for help from their coalition partners. They quickly discovered that help wasn't coming. Rear Admiral Bae Junsu commanded Task Force Sejong, a hunting group of 12 dreadnoughts and 60 support ships. His orders were simple: find the fleeing Vraxian ships and destroy them before they could reorganize. He stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Sejong's Hammer, studying the tactical display. "We have sensor contacts in the Proxima system," reported his tactical officer. "Looks like 2 Vraxian battle groups, roughly 400 ships. They're trying to establish a defensive perimeter around the 3rd planet." Bay smiled coldly. "They're trying to hide behind a civilian world. They think we won't attack if it means risking alien colonists." He opened the fleet channel. "All ships prepare for combat jump. We're going to show them that defensive perimeters don't work against slipspace drives." The task force vanished from normal space and reappeared in the middle of the Vraxian formation. The aliens had been watching the hyperspace lanes, expecting a conventional approach. They weren't ready for enemies to simply appear among them. The battle was brutal and one-sided. Human ships used their superior speed and weapons to tear through the alien defenses. Within 2 hours, both Vraxian battle groups were either destroyed or fleeing deeper into the system. "Admiral, should we pursue?" asked his executive officer. Bay shook his head. "No need, send a message to the planet below. Tell them we have no quarrel with civilians. Any Vraxian military vessel that surrenders will be treated fairly. Any that continue to fight will be destroyed." While Task Force Sejong hunted the main Vraxian forces, a different kind of warfare was happening in the shadows. Captain Oh Seoyeon commanded the Ghost Fleet, a group of 20 stealth frigates equipped with the latest cloaking technology. Her mission was to cut the enemy's supply lines. The frigate Silent Wind drifted through space like a phantom. Its engines ran cold. Its hull absorbed radar instead of reflecting it. To enemy sensors, it was invisible. Oh Seoyeon watched through her view screen as a Vraxian supply convoy passed nearby, completely unaware they were being hunted. "All ships, target the fuel tankers first," she whispered into the comm. "We want them stranded, not dead. Fire on my mark." 20 frigates decloaked at once, appearing like ghosts out of the darkness. Their weapons were smaller than the dreadnoughts carried, but they were precise. Missile strikes disabled the tankers' engines without destroying them. The escort ships tried to respond, but they couldn't find targets that kept disappearing and reappearing. In 15 minutes, the entire convoy was disabled. Oh Seoyeon broadcast a message to the alien crews. "Abandon your ships. We'll destroy them in 10 minutes. This is your only warning." The Vraxian crews evacuated, taking their escape pods to a nearby moon. Once they were clear, the Ghost Fleet destroyed the empty supply ships and vanished back into the darkness. Somewhere else in the galaxy, another enemy fleet would run out of fuel and be stranded. Vice Admiral Hwang Min-seok had a different mission. His carrier group Gwangju had been sent to liberate human prisoners of war from captured colony worlds. The first target was a prison camp on New Shanghai, where 15,000 human colonists were being held in terrible conditions. "Sir, we're detecting heavy defenses around the camp," reported his sensor officer. 3 orbital stations, 200 ground troops, and automated defense systems. They're using the prisoners as shields. Huang studied the tactical data. A direct assault would kill the people they were trying to save. They needed precision. Launch the drop pods. Send in the Marines. We do this the hard way. Marine Colonel Song Taejun led the assault personally. His drop pod hit the atmosphere of New Shanghai like a meteorite, screaming down through the clouds with 500 other pods. The Vraxian defenders opened fire, but the pods were armored and fast. Most made it through. Song's pod crashed into the ground 50 meters from the prison camp's main gate. He burst out with his rifle ready, leading his squad toward the fence. Explosions erupted around them as the orbital stations tried to target the Marines, but fighter cover from the Gwangju kept them busy. "Breach the gate," Song ordered. "Get those people out." The Marines hit the camp like a hurricane. They had trained for this kind of operation for months. Within minutes, they had secured the main compound and begun evacuating prisoners. The human colonists, starved and abused but alive, cried with relief as they saw the Marine armor with Earth insignia. One prisoner, an older woman, grabbed Song's arm. "You came for us. We thought Earth had forgotten about us." Song's voice was gentle despite his combat armor. "Earth never forgets her children. Let's get you home." Back on Earth, Ambassador Choi Yuna was working on a different kind of battle. Not all species in the alien coalition wanted to fight. Some had been forced into it by Vraxian threats. Others had been lied to about human intentions. She spent her days reaching out to these species, offering them a way out. Her biggest success came with the Hylari, a peaceful species that had only joined the coalition because the Vraxians threatened to blockade their trade routes. The Hylari ambassador, a being that looked like a walking tree, met with Choi in a secure communication channel. "We were told humans were violent conquerors," the Hylari said through his translator. "But the Vraxians destroyed your colonies, killed your people, and you show mercy to prisoners. You could have bombarded our worlds, but you only target military assets. This is not the behavior of conquerors." Choi chose her words carefully. "Humanity doesn't want an empire. We want to exist without fear of extermination. If your people leave the coalition and promise neutrality, we will guarantee your safety and restore your trade routes." The Hylari ambassador was quiet for a moment. "I will take this offer to my government. I believe they will accept. The Vraxians promised us glory, but brought only death." Within 2 weeks, 3 more species followed the Hylari's example. They withdrew from the coalition and declared neutrality. The Vraxian Dominion's grand alliance was falling apart, but not everyone was willing to surrender. 2 species, the Krelith and the Morgath, were as committed to the war as the Vraxians. They launched their own attack on Earth, sending their combined fleets in a desperate gambit to destroy the human homeworld, while the main Terran fleet was scattered across the galaxy. They jumped into the Sol system, expecting to find Earth defenseless. Instead, they found 30 more dreadnoughts waiting in orbit, ships that had never left home. These were the reserve fleet, commanded by Admiral Yoon Tae-sung himself. The alien attack force numbered 600 ships. It was a massive fleet by any standard, but the Terran Dreadnoughts had been built specifically to defend Earth, and they had the advantage of fighting on home ground. "All ships engage at will," Yoon ordered calmly. "Show them why Earth's defenses have never been breached." The battle lasted 3 hours. The alien fleet tried every tactic they knew, but nothing worked against the overwhelming firepower of the dreadnoughts. When it was over, 400 alien ships were destroyed and 200 more captured. Not a single human vessel was lost. The survivors carried a message back to their home worlds. Earth was not just defended, it was impregnable. As the weeks passed, the tide of war became clear. The Vraxian Dominion was losing everywhere. Their fleet was shattered, their allies were abandoning them, and their supply lines were cut. Human forces pushed deeper into enemy territory, not conquering but liberating, freeing the species that the Vraxians had subjugated for centuries. But Supreme Commander Thalrex, imprisoned on the Inchin's vengeance, still had one desperate card to play. He had hidden 3,000 human prisoners on a secret station in the Kronos Nebula. Through intermediaries, he sent a message to Admiral Kwan. "Release me and let my fleet retreat to our home system," the message said, "or I will order the execution of every human prisoner. You have 12 hours to decide." Admiral Kwan read the message with cold fury. He called an emergency conference with his senior officers. Captain Lee Hyon, Dr. Park Ji-woo, and several other commanders gathered in the war room. "He's desperate," said Lee. "He knows he's lost the war. This is his last attempt to gain leverage." Dr. Park studied a star map. "The Kronos Nebula is heavily shielded. Our sensors can't penetrate it easily. Finding the station could take days." "We don't have days," Kwan said grimly. He looked at his officers. "Options?" Commodore Lim Hana, commander of Task Force Daejeon, stepped forward. She was young but brilliant, known for unconventional tactics. "Sir, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might work." Kwan listened as she explained her plan. It involved using the slip space drives in a way they'd never been tested before, jumping blind into the nebula using mathematical probability rather than direct sensor data. It was dangerous. Ships could collide with debris or appear inside solid objects if the calculations were wrong. "Do it," Kwan decided. "Get those people back." Task Force Daejeon, consisting of 8 dreadnoughts and 30 Fry. Space itself seemed to tear apart. Glowing rifts appeared throughout the area around Neptune, and from those rifts emerged the largest warships the galaxy had ever seen. The Terran Dreadnoughts came through in perfect formation, their hulls painted in dark gray and bearing the names of destroyed colonies. Leading them was the TDSF Inchin's Vengeance, Admiral Kwan's flagship. Behind it came the Busan's Fury, Sol's Thunder, Kepler's Defiance, and 48 others. Each ship bristled with weapons. Each ship radiated enough power to make the alien sensors scream warnings. On the Vraxian flagship, chaos erupted. Multiple contacts. 60, 80, 100. The sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. Commander, there are over 400 large ships appearing. And behind them, thousands more smaller vessels. Supreme Commander Thalrex gripped his command throne with all four arms. This is impossible. Where did they come from? Where were they hiding? His tactical officer worked frantically at the console. They're using some kind of spatial tunneling we've never seen before. They're not using standard hyperspace lanes. Commander, each of those large ships has more power output than one of our entire battle groups. Through the viewport, Thalrex watched the human fleet materialize. The sight made his blood run cold. These weren't the primitive ships humanity had used to defend their colonies. These were weapons of war built by a civilization that had learned the hardest lesson possible: adapt or die. Admiral Quan stood on his bridge, watching the alien armada through the main screen. His crew worked with calm efficiency around him, no panic, no fear. They had trained for this moment for years. Tactical, target their command ships first, Quan ordered. Let's cut off the head before the body realizes what's happening. Targets locked, Admiral. Railguns charged to maximum. Missile batteries ready. Fire. The Inchon's vengeance unleashed its main weapons. The railguns were massive, larger than any human had built before. They fired projectiles the size of small buildings at velocities that made them nearly unstoppable. The kinetic energy alone was devastating. The rounds hit the Vraxian flagship's shields. The shields, which had seemed invincible when they were destroying human colonies, lasted exactly 3 seconds. The fourth round punched straight through and tore into the ship's hull. Explosions rippled across its surface. All ships weapons free, Quan commanded. Show them what Earth builds when you try to kill us. The entire Terran fleet opened fire at once. The darkness of space lit up like a solar storm. Railgun rounds streaked across the void. Missiles by the thousands launched from bays and tubes. The human destroyers and frigates, faster and more maneuverable than the dreadnoughts, wove through the alien formation like sharks among fish. Captain Li Haiyan commanded the Busan's Fury from his command chair. Watching his tactical display with fierce concentration, his ship's AI targeted 3 Vraxian cruisers simultaneously. Fire solution calculated, reported his weapons officer, Nam Jiho. Ready on your mark, Captain. Fire all forward batteries. The dreadnought shuddered as its main guns fired. 3 streams of hypervelocity rounds lanced out, each one finding its target. The Vraxian cruisers tried to evade, but they were too slow. The rounds hit home and all 3 ships broke apart under the kinetic assault. Captain, enemy battleship attempting to flank us, called out Nam Jiho. Show them we can dance, Li said. Helm, execute slip jump 307. The Busan's Fury vanished from normal space and reappeared 2,000 kilometers to the side. The Vraxian battleship fired at empty space where the human dreadnought had been a second before. Before they could adjust, the Fury fired again. The alien battleship didn't survive the encounter. This was humanity's true advantage. Not just bigger ships or better weapons, but technology that let them appear and disappear at will. The slipspace drives allowed micro-jumps within a star system, something that should have been impossible according to conventional physics. But Dr. Park's team had made it work. The Battle of Neptune became a slaughter. The Vraxian Dominion had brought 3,000 ships, expecting to crush Earth's last defenses. Instead, they found themselves fighting a fleet that was better equipped, better trained, and absolutely furious. Captain Shin Mirai commanded the carrier Guangzhou, one of the new supercarriers that launched swarms of AI-guided fighters. Her tactical display showed hundreds of small craft screaming through space, overwhelming the alien point defenses. All fighter wings concentrate on their supply ships, she ordered. Cut off their fuel and ammunition. Make them choose between fighting and running. The fighters obeyed with machine precision. They identified the logistics vessels in the alien fleet and targeted them mercilessly. Fuel tankers exploded into massive fireballs. Ammunition ships detonated like small stars. The Vraxian fleet began to fragment as individual groups ran out of resources. Aboard the damaged flagship Eternal Dominion, Supreme Commander Thalrex tried desperately to rally his forces. All ships maintain formation. Concentrate fire on their command vessel. If we can destroy their flagship, we can still win this. But his orders fell on deaf ears. Ship captains across the Armada were making their own decisions. and most of those decisions involved running away as fast as possible. The allied species that had joined the Vraxians were abandoning the fight. 3 entire battle groups broke off and jumped to hyperspace, fleeing back to their home systems. "Commander, we must retreat," urged his tactical officer. "We've lost over 800 ships already. The humans are cutting through us like we're nothing." Thalrex wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but he knew the officer was right. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was an execution. "Signal all ships. Full retreat. Jump to rally point Sigma." The surviving Vraxian ships began jumping away, scrambling to escape the human fury. But they were slower than the Terran ships, and their hyperspace jumps took time to calculate. The human slipspace drives let them pursue instantly. Admiral Quan watched the alien fleet breaking apart. Part of him felt satisfaction at seeing the enemy run. But another part, the part that had watched colonists die, wanted to chase them down and destroy every last ship. "Admiral, should we pursue?" asked his executive officer. Quan considered it. They could hunt down the fleeing ships. They could turn this into a complete annihilation. But was that who humanity wanted to be? "Pursue the main force only," he finally said. "Let the smaller ships run. They'll spread word of what happened here today. But Thalrex and his command staff, they need to answer for genocide. Target his flagship. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. We're taking prisoners." The Inchin's Vengeance and 5 other dreadnoughts broke formation and chased after the Vraxian flagship. The Eternal Dominion was already damaged, leaking atmosphere and running on backup power. It couldn't outrun the human ships. "This is Admiral Quan of the Terran Defense Force to the Vraxian flagship," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Surrender now, and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue to run and we will shoot out your engines and take you anyway. Choose quickly." Thalrex stared at the communication channel, hatred burning in his golden eyes. To surrender to humans, to primitive upstarts who should have been wiped out, was unbearable. But the alternative was death for everyone on his ship. "This isn't over," he said quietly. Then louder to his crew, "All stop. Power down weapons. Send the surrender signal." The Battle of Neptune was over. In 4 hours of combat, humanity had destroyed or disabled 800 alien warships. The Vraxian celebration had turned into a catastrophic defeat. The remaining ships of the Dominion fleet scattered across 3 star systems, each one carrying stories of the monsters that humans had built in secret. Admiral Quan stood in the hangar bay of the Inchin's Vengeance, watching as Vraxian prisoners were brought aboard under Marine guard. Supreme Commander Thalrex walked among them, his forearms bound, his golden eyes filled with shock. The alien commander stopped in front of Quan. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you build all this without anyone knowing?" Quan looked at the being who had ordered the death of billions of humans. "You made a mistake," he said quietly. "You assumed we would panic when threatened. You assumed we would beg for mercy. You didn't understand that humans are at their most dangerous when facing extinction. We didn't panic. We planned, we built, and we waited for you to come to us." He gestured around at the massive ship. "Every human on Earth made sacrifices to build this fleet. We paid higher taxes. We worked longer hours. We postponed dreams and delayed plans. For 20 years we prepared for this day. Your mistake was giving us time to get ready." Thalrex looked around at the human Marines, at the advanced technology, at the ship that was bigger and better than anything his empire had built. "What will you do with us now?" he asked. "Will you exterminate us as we tried to exterminate you?" Admiral Quan was quiet for a long moment. "No, that would make us like you. Instead, you're going to stand trial for war crimes. You're going to answer for every human you killed, and the galaxy is going to watch and learn what happens when someone tries to destroy humanity." He nodded to the Marines. "Take him to the brig. Make sure he's comfortable. He's got a long wait ahead of him." As the prisoners were led away, Quan's executive officer approached. The Terran fleet arrived at Vraxis Prime like a storm made of steel and determination. 60 dreadnoughts, 300 cruisers, and 1,500 support ships formed a wall around the Vraxian homeworld. It was the largest military operation in human history, and everyone in the galaxy was watching. Admiral Quan stood on the bridge of the Inchin's Vengeance, looking at the planet below. Vraxis Prime was beautiful in a strange way, with purple oceans and golden continents. Billions of Vraxians lived on that world, going about their daily lives while their government had tried to exterminate humanity. "Orbital defenses are impressive," reported his tactical officer. 200 defense stations, each one heavily armed. Minefields throughout the system, and their home fleet, what's left of it, about 800 ships. Strategic advisor Zhong Yuri stood beside Quan, studying the tactical display. She was a civilian expert in military strategy, brought along specifically for this moment. Sir, we could break through those defenses in a few hours. Our ships are superior, but the casualties, both theirs and ours, would be massive. Quan nodded slowly. I know. That's why we're not going to storm the defenses. We're going to wait them out. He opened a communication channel to the planet below. This is Admiral Quan of the Terran Defense Force to the government of Raxus Prime. Your war fleet is destroyed. Your allies have abandoned you. Your empire is finished. I am offering you one chance to surrender peacefully. The response came from Acting Supreme Commander Velrax, who had taken control after Thalrex's capture. His image appeared on the screen, showing a Vraxian who looked older and more tired than Thalrex had been. You want us to surrender our homeworld to humans? To admit defeat to a species we considered primitive? I want you to face justice for genocide, Quan replied. Your forces killed 3 billion human colonists. You destroyed entire worlds. Someone must answer for those crimes. Surrender now and we will show mercy to your civilians. Continue to resist and we will blockade this world until your government collapses from within. Velrax's forearms trembled with anger. Raxus Prime has never fallen to an enemy. We have defenses that have stood for 1,000 years. You cannot break us. We won't need to break you, Quan said calmly. We just need to wait. Your supply lines are cut. Your trade routes are gone. How long can your world survive in isolation? How long before your people demand peace? The transmission ended. Velrax had made his choice. The siege began. The Terran fleet established a complete blockade. Nothing entered or left the system. Human ships patrolled every possible exit route. The slip space drives allowed them to respond instantly to any attempt to break through. It was a perfect trap. Inside Vraxus Prime, life began to change quickly. Supply shortages hit within days. Food became rationed. Medicine ran low. The civilian population, which had been celebrating humanity's destruction just weeks before, now faced the reality of war. One of those civilians was Charnel, the young Vraxian officer who had questioned the war from the beginning. She had been recalled to the homeworld before the Battle of Neptune, and now she found herself trapped with everyone else. She joined a growing resistance movement of Vraxians who wanted peace. We must convince the government to surrender, she told her fellow resistance members at a secret meeting. Every day we resist, more people suffer. The humans have shown they will wait forever if needed. Our leadership's pride is killing us. An older Vraxian, a former diplomat named Corvesh, nodded agreement. I have contacts in the government. There are others who want peace but fear being labeled as traitors. We need to organize, show the leadership that their people demand surrender. The resistance grew quickly. Food riots broke out in major cities. Protests filled the streets. The Vraxian government tried to suppress the unrest, but it spread too fast. The humans hadn't fired a single shot at the planet, yet the siege was working. On the Terran flagship, Captain Li Haiyan met with Admiral Quan in private. He had been troubled since the siege began. Sir, I know this is necessary, but watching civilians suffer, even alien civilians, it's difficult, Li admitted. Are we doing the right thing? Quan looked at his captain with understanding. It's supposed to be difficult. The moment it becomes easy to cause suffering even to our enemies is the moment we lose our humanity. But consider the alternative. We could bombard the planet, destroy their defenses in hours. Millions would die. This way, we apply pressure and let their own people force the government to see reason. Li nodded slowly. And if they don't surrender? How long do we wait? As long as it takes. We're not on a schedule. Earth is secure. The Vraxian fleet is broken. We can maintain this blockade indefinitely. Time is on our side. 3 weeks into the siege, something unexpected happened. Ambassador Choi Yuna, who had been monitoring communications from the planet, detected a secret transmission requesting to speak with human leadership. The sender was from inside the Vraxian government itself. The meeting was arranged through secure channels. A holographic image appeared in the Inchun's war room, showing a Vraxian official who looked exhausted. My name is Talvesh, the official said. I serve on the High Council. I am part of a faction that wants to end this war. Acting Commander Velrax and his supporters refuse to surrender, but they don't represent all of us. Many of us believe the war was wrong from the beginning, Quan studied the alien carefully. What are you proposing? A coup. We will remove Velrax from power and install a government willing to negotiate peace. But we need time to organize, and we need assurance that you won't bombard the planet during the transition. Strategic advisor Zhang Yuri spoke up. How do we know this isn't a trick? That you're not buying time for the defense fleet to prepare a breakout attempt? Talvesh's voice was tired. You don't know. You have to trust us. But consider this. I am risking my life by contacting you. If Velrax's security forces discover this transmission, I will be executed as a traitor. I wouldn't take that risk unless I truly believed peace was necessary. Admiral Quan made a decision. You have 1 week. If you can remove Velrax and establish a government willing to face justice for war crimes, we will negotiate. But any attempt to use this as cover for military action, and the siege becomes an assault. Are we clear? Perfectly clear, Admiral. Thank you. The transmission ended. Quan looked at his senior staff. Colonel Song, prepare your Marines for possible orbital insertion. If this goes wrong, we might need to act fast. Marine Colonel Song Tejun nodded. My troops are ready, sir. If we need to go down there, we'll secure the government buildings and protect civilians. On Vrax's Prime, Charnel and the Resistance worked with the moderate government faction to plan their move. It happened during a High Council meeting, when Velrax was presenting his plans for a desperate final battle against the human fleet. We will load all defense stations with civilians, Velrax announced to the shocked council. The humans claim to care about innocent lives. They won't fire if it means killing our people. While they hesitate, our fleet will break through the blockade. That was the moment Talvesh and his supporters had been waiting for. Guards loyal to the peace faction moved into position. The chamber doors locked. No, Talvesh said, standing from his seat. No more atrocities. No more using civilians as shields. Acting Commander Velrax, you are removed from command. The High Council invokes emergency powers to install a provisional government dedicated to ending this war. Velrax reached for his weapon, but the guards were faster. He was disarmed and arrested within seconds. The coup was over in minutes. News of the government change spread across Vrax's Prime quickly. Some celebrated, others protested. But the majority of the population, tired of shortages and fear, simply felt relief. The new provisional government sent a message to the Terran fleet. We are ready to negotiate. Admiral Quan brought Ambassador Choi Yuna to handle the actual negotiations. She met with Talvesh and the new Vraxian leadership in a neutral space station. The terms were harsh but fair. The Vraxian Dominion would stand trial for war crimes. All surviving military leadership would be held accountable. Reparations would be paid to human survivors. The Vraxian fleet would be reduced to defensive vessels only. And most importantly, the Dominion would agree to a galactic charter based on human rights and interspecies law. These terms are severe, Talvesh admitted, but they are just. My people committed terrible crimes. We must face the consequences. Choi Yuna nodded with respect. Your courage in ending this war will be remembered. Not all of humanity wanted revenge. Many of us simply wanted peace and justice. The formal surrender happened in orbit above Vrax's Prime. Admiral Quan accepted the surrender documents while representatives from dozens of species watched via holoconference. Supreme Commander Thalrex was brought from his cell to witness the end of everything he had built. But the ceremony was interrupted by an emergency alert. Velrax, the former acting commander, had escaped from custody. He had seized control of a defense station and activated a dead man's switch. Fusion bombs placed throughout the planet's power grid. If he died or lost control, the bombs would detonate and destroy half the planet's infrastructure. You see? Velrax broadcast from the station. This is what happens when we show weakness.